Hello, welcome everyone to another week of the Penny Dreadfuls Book Review Podcast. I am your host for this evening, and I'm so sorry. My name is Sam, and I'm here with my beautiful sisters.
I'm Izzy, the favorite.
No, she said beautiful.
Oh,
I'm Jackie.
I guess I'll leave. Sorry, you're right.
And this week we are covering The One Who Got Away with Murder by Trish Lundy. I have it as a thriller mystery genre at a whopping 384 pages. It was published in April of 2024.
Before we get into the plot, I have a question for you, Sam.
Yes.
How did you find this book? What drew you in?
So I found it walking through Barnes and Nobles. And it was just in the recently released little section.
Mhm.
And I don't usually end up there just because I like to read reviews of books first. But I liked the cover of this one, and so I saw a lady walking around with it, and I was like, okay, someone else is interested, so it can't be that bad. But by the time that I had made it through my laps of the store, I saw 4 different people carrying it around. So I was like, there has to be something to this book then, that if multiple people are carrying this book around. I went back and grabbed it. I don't think I even read the plot, actually. I just
That is so funny.
So I also have
you
a
really
question.
trust strangers.
Yeah, for real.
Yeah.
I also have a question for you guys before we get started. In my mind, it's very obviously, when I read it, squarely in the young adult category, but there were some things in there that didn't really mesh for me. So what do you guys?
Let's get into that at the end.
Well, I was just gonna ask what you guys think of the meshing of a thriller and young adult novel like this.
It can be done. It was not done well in this book.
Okay.
I was reading it and I was like, absolutely not.
Okay. What did you think, Sam?
Yeah. So I actually, in my notes, I said it was good. It's definitely a young adult book. Actually, word for word, I wrote it was good. Not exceptional, but good. It's definitely a young adult book. I feel like it definitely could have, I don't know, worked better. I agree with you. It's hard to do young adult and thriller mystery. I mean, it was good. I just don't know if I would have necessarily tried to mesh it the way they did.
I don't know. I do not know why she picked high school. The story would have worked so much better for college.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
In
I
every
agree.
single aspect. Even the main character, I know we'll get into it, but she's smoking cigarettes. And I'm like, okay, that's not so bad. And then she goes to a party where they all get trashed and there's alcohol. I'm like, okay, still a bad example. They don't know nobody in the area. And they're like, yeah, sure, go away for the weekend with people I've never met, and doesn't ever verify to make sure she knows the friends or where they're going. Or, I mean, I guess it could happen, but I feel like college would have been a much better setting for this book.
I agree. Okay. I did that kind of answer your question, Izzy?
Yes, it did. Because before we jumped into the plot, I did just want to address it was, I don't think, placed in the correct genres.
No.
And I want that to be our main,
that we don't condone any of this activity for high schoolers.
Before we jump into the plot, I wanted to make that clear.
Yes.
Okay. I get
Just
it.
because we read it does not mean we condone it.
Before we jump in, I would like to say that it feels like we're gossiping about characters in a book. And I just love the fact that we have a weekly gossip hour about people that aren't real and can't be affected. This is the healthy way to talk shit. It's about fictional people. I love it. We might hurt fans or the author's feelings, which is unintentional, but this is our honest opinion. And if we held back, it wouldn't be genuine. So I just want to say that I'm so fucking happy we have this podcast, because, oh boy, it's the highlight of my week. Anyway, please continue.
So first, I rated it an 80 out of 100. I'll get more into why I scored it later, but this is also this author's first book. I don't know necessarily maybe if that played a part in how it was written, why it was written the way it was. But I just want to make sure people know that like I don't know, maybe go easy on her. It is her first book, but also like critique because it is her first book, so she could be better. I don't know. I had issues with this book, which I'll get into as I go. The main character's name is Lauren. Her and her mom move from Pennsylvania to California. I can't remember the city, but and she says pretty much in the beginning like to get away from her past. In the beginning it never really goes into what exactly that means. It She talks about a trauma that takes place that she's going through a lot. Was really hard to move on, so that was a big part of the move. They also get into it also that it worked out kind of perfect because then they move in with the mom's boyfriend who lives in California, so it's just like this fresh start kind of thing. Starting to read it, I was like, oh, okay, I see where we're going already. It's, a young woman going through a hard time, getting a fresh start. Okay. It's right before her senior year, which has to suck to move cross country and not know anybody in what's supposed to be one of the best years of high school. You kind of already almost sympathize with her. My problem begins immediately with the fact that she's just hooking up with a random dude that works at the same place her mom works at. His name's Robbie. They're like having just a casual once a week fling. She finds out that Robbie is bad news from the girls on her soccer team. I'll get into that. But so Lauren, I don't remember what position. I'm really bad at soccer, so sorry if I get that wrong. I'm not even gonna guess. She joins the soccer team. She's trying really hard to like fit in with them, but they instantly seem like they don't like her and they don't want her involved, and she's not really sure why at first. And then she finds out from two of the people that they just recently had a death on the team, and the girl that died, Lauren, has now taken her spot. So that's why they're like kind of standoffish at first. And then she finds out that the girl who died, Victoria, was dating Robbie, the guy that Lauren's now hooking up with. They all dislike Robbie because they think that Robbie killed Victoria. Like it was never proven that he did it, but you get the feeling that the entire town thinks that. And so he's just instantly written off as bad news. And they all try to warn her, stay away from him. We don't want the same thing to happen to you. So now she's torn like, do I stay with this guy I like, potentially make my teammates mad, or do I listen to my teammates who I don't know that well? They're not really that nice to me. They could be lying to me. So she's got that struggle going on. She ends up deciding to stay with Robbie. She goes on a weekend trip with Robbie and his friends, and they convince her that he's innocent. They're like, no, he wouldn't do that to her. He's really torn up about it. So now she's all these like mixed feelings. Like, okay, like I get maybe he didn't do it. I don't. He doesn't seem like the type that would. Which that I have issues with too. While she's away on the weekend trip, though, they're on this like lake house, and they'll go out on the boat and they're having a good time and stuff. She's digging for sunscreen on the boat and finds a bikini top that has blood on it. She remembers hearing that Victoria was found with her chest all cut up and her bikini top was missing. So she's like, okay, well, I found it. Like, what do I do? She's like, what if I say something like he could get mad and like kill me too, or like, or if he didn't do it and like one of his friends did it, now there's like this whole thing. So she like panics and hides it, and she's like, I don't know what to do. They come back from the weekend trip. During that, Robbie's little brother Trevor like gives her this like really weird warning of like, I'm watching you, not his exact words, but the gist of it. So she's like, Okay, that was really weird. She spends the whole rest of the weekend like trying to hide from him, kind of. They get back, and Robbie's friend John is like, "Why are you being weird? Like, what's going on?" So she tells John that she found the bikini top. He's like, "Holy crap, we could potentially use this to prove Robbie's innocent." So her and John drive back up to the lake house, and it's missing. Like, the bikini top is now nowhere to be found. She's like, "I promise you I found it. It was here." And he's like, "No, I believe you. But this means that somebody else saw it. They're now trying to hide it." She goes into this like whole crime solving thing. Her and John and Robbie are trying to like help prove that Robbie's innocent. But during this whole murder investigation thing, she finds out also that Trevor, Robbie's little brother, has also been suspected of murdering a girlfriend. And her name, Jess. That's her name. So now she's like extra concerned because she's now involved with a guy who's suspected of murdering his girlfriend. His brother was suspected of murdering that girlfriend. So she's like really on edge, but she doesn't really believe that either one of them did it. But she doesn't not believe it either. If a murder investigation wasn't enough, her mom gets engaged to the new boyfriend, who she's kind of on the fence about. She's like, I get it, he makes her happy, but she's not thrilled that he's around all the time, and her mom's not the same anymore. The mom's boyfriend, whose name is Mark, has a daughter named do you guys pronounce it Ainsley?
I read it as Ainsley. I don't know if that's correct or not, but
Okay, and that's how I was pronouncing it, and I was like, I don't know if that's right. So sorry if I'm wrong, author. So Ainsley does not seem to like Lauren, and she's like kind of catty to her. And then she finds out that Ainsley's got a pretty dark secret of her own. Jess and Ainsley were like best friends. The way that Jess died was an overdose. They said it was accidental, but like Jess has never done drugs. So for her to overdose, like that doesn't sound right, doesn't seem like her. So then people were thinking that Trevor drugged her, and that's how he gets suspected of it. Ainsley has this whole like, I don't do drugs. Drugs are bad. I would never do that because of Jess. And then you find out she definitely does drugs. Was it cocaine?
it was, yeah, cocaine.
So, a pretty hardcore drug to pretend you don't do.
She did cocaine and she dealt it too, right?
Yeah. And she like went to parties and dealt it to a bunch of people, and then tried to turn around and pretend like she was this perfect, I don't do drugs because my best friend died from drugs. And that was I think kind of a predictable plot twist. Like I read it and I went, okay, that tracks, I guess. All that's going on. She's doing all the murder investigation stuff. Lauren starts thinking that the coach of the soccer team is the one that actually killed them, because when she's on that weekend trip, she sees the coach there, like talking to another one of her classmates. So she's like, well, he had access to the lake house. He would know who everyone is because of the soccer team. You find out that he didn't do it. Pretty shortly after that weekend, Trevor gets killed in the high school parking lot. He overdoses, and everyone's like, wow, how tragic, just like Jess. And then some people are like, wow, he's finally getting what he deserves because of Jess. So it's this pretty pivotal moment, I think, in the book. After a while of like more digging and stuff, they start to think that Robbie's dad was the one that did it, because I think it was Victoria said that when her and Robbie had a break, she was seeing someone and it would ruin them if anyone found out. They had some authority and money and stuff, so a lot of it just kind of leaned towards Robbie's dad. There's a big party coming up. Robbie, Lauren, John, and two of the girls from the soccer team who I cannot remember their names. Do either of you have those?
The one that hated her was Mira, and I want to say Angela was her girlfriend, the two that ended up teaming up with her
Yeah.
later on in the story. I do want to add real quick the reason why they suspected the father, and this is something that I want to talk about later, but they suspect the father because one of the boys in the group says that he found a pair of Jess's underwear in the
Yes.
dad's dresser. And for
Yeah.
that reason, they're like, well, it has to be the
Right.
dad.
Yeah, I think Trevor says that, I think.
And then it was
No. Robbie says it because Victoria like got her period or something while they were at the lake house. So he went to like get some from his stepmom or his mom or something. I don't,
yeah, his stepmom.
yeah, I forgot all about that. Yeah. The dad's throwing like a party. I think it's a Halloween party. They plan on confronting him at the party, being like, "We know you did it. What, why'd you do it? Blah, blah, blah." Robbie starts to say something. That's when they notice that the house is on fire. The house, that there's a billion people crammed into this house, and the house is on fire. So they never get to confront the dad. It does not fully get burned down. It just an attempt. I feel like a bunch of blur things kind of happen in the middle there, like between this and the next plot twist, nothing of like significance really happens. Because then the next big plot point is Lauren comes home and finds some food on the counter for her. She's like going to eat it and she starts to head upstairs. She like feels kind of dizzy and like not quite right. Mark starts to come downstairs, the mom's boyfriend. Oh, I missed something. So when she's there, they suspected whoever did it was someone dressed as a skeleton. I almost forgot that one. Because
They
of
had the security camera footage, right?
yeah, they like watched someone dressed as a skeleton like dumping what they thought was like fuel or like gasoline or something. So as she's like coming down or like going up the stairs, she's coming down with like a laundry basket or a box or something. She's like, "I don't feel good. Something's not right. I'm kind of woozy." And he's like, "Lauren, are you okay?" And she's like, "No, like something's not right." And she just kind of trying to balance herself, like looks down and sees in the box there's a skeleton costume. He can tell that she now has an inkling of what's going on. He like wrestles her to the ground, like knocks her out. As she's fading, it's like she makes a comment about like noticing the evil look on his face as he's standing over her. You find out like that Mark is the one that killed Victoria, Jess, and Trevor. Victoria liked to go on like night swims just because she was a swimmer and it was really peaceful and quiet then. And that's when he attacked her. She tried to fight back. Obviously, ultimately did not survive the attack. But then he tried to hide the evidence. The reason that he had access to that lake house is because his company did like IT stuff there. So he had access to that house, and which means he had access to the cameras and stuff. So he knew when Lauren found the bikini top. So that's how he was able to go back and then steal the top. And then he had access to drugs because of Ainsley, right? Is that he knew about that?
Yeah,
Jack
Ainsley, I
Downey's.
think, came out and said that she found some of her stash missing.
Okay. So, okay. I was right. I just like I feel like so many little mini plot points happened in this that I was like, I want to make sure this
They're everywhere, and you don't
yeah.
realize until the end, like everything was actually important. So
Yeah. And so you find out that he stole drugs from his daughter and then he was the one that killed Jess. It kind of leaves like throughout the book you kind of are led to believe that he didn't know that Ainsley did drugs and stuff, but you find out at the end that like he knew the whole time and he was like protecting her and getting her out of trouble for it and stuff. He gets arrested for their murders and then attempting to murder Lauren. Speaking of like a million plot points that just happen throughout the book. There's also a trash blog some mysterious person is running, and it like throws all these conspiracy theories out and tries to like put people down and all sorts of stuff. It turns out that Ainsley is the one that runs it, so she's just overall not a good human. The book then ends with kind of going back to the beginning because the trauma that Lauren left behind was that so when she lived in Pennsylvania, she had a boyfriend named Clint. I think it was Clint's friend who was like harassing her and demanding pictures and like kind of blackmailing her and being like if you don't let me take these pictures, I'm going to tell Clint that we slept together. She finally has enough and she finds the pictures and finds out it's not happening to just her, that like he's doing it to a bunch of girls. So she takes all these Polaroids and throws them in a dumpster outside and lights or the trash can and lights the trash can on fire, thinking that like it's just gonna catch the pictures on fire. But they had been drinking and there was alcohol in the trash cans. So that like makes this really big fire and it catches the house on fire and Clint gets really hurt during the fire. That's the trauma that she tries to get away from, that like she almost killed Clint and like all this stuff happened.
Well, everybody thought that she like had set the house on fire on purpose.
People blamed her for like attempted murder and like called her all these horrible names and basically exiled her for an accident.
She couldn't exactly be like, hey, I was actually burning up these creepy pictures this guy had of me. Like,
Yeah,
like that sounds even less believable than
right.
your
Yeah,
options.
and all these other girls, because then she's now exposing those girls too. But then, so at the end of the book, she somehow reaches out to Clint, and they meet up for lunch, and she gets that closure of like he's doing okay, like he's not mad at her. It's like kind of this almost heartwarming, like full circle closure moment.
In the end, she decides to continue dating Robbie. Like,
Oh, yeah,
yeah.
yeah. I was choosing to ignore that.
Which it doesn't. So just based on the synopsis, it doesn't sound like Robbie's that bad. And I guess like the problem is they're in high school again. Like if they were in college, yeah, like some guy that drinks all the time and is constantly smoking cigarettes and doing all this other shit, like maybe not so bad. But like this kid is written as a senior in high school. I mean, they're both seniors in high school, and it's just like,
He comes from like a really rich family, and like a really powerful family, so they like he's just kind of allowed to do whatever he wants because of his last name. And which again, I think if even like college freshmen, that would have made more sense. It's weird for high schoolers. It's
but the book is like, it's so funny because the book is like, everything ends. And she's like, they go on this great weekend away with just her and her mom to reconnect with each other and to like, her mom apologizes for not seeing like Mark's bad side and forever putting her in that position and like not listening to the girls' reservations about it. So that like gets tied up beautifully and they reconnect. And then she goes to Clint and she like really heartfelt connection. They talk about it for a long time. They're like, oh, I'm so sorry you didn't tell me that this was happening sooner. Like, of course, I don't blame you, all this other stuff. And so there's that connection that gets like done so well and like reconnected and everything's great. And then she goes back to that like terrible town with this like horrible influence, this guy that's been like not great this entire time. And she's like, okay, yes, I'll date you. Like, what?
yeah.
No, 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 please. Anyway, sorry. This has been Hot Takes by Jackie.
Hot Takes
Well,
by Jackie is my new favorite series.
right. We need to make that as like a Patreon exclusive.
Sammy, would you like to jump into your thoughts or would you like to take a little break from talking and have one of us go first?
I'll let you guys go ahead and go first.
Okay, so I'll start.
Okay. All right. Cool. It's just, my birthday was yesterday and I don't even get a choice.
Happy birthday. Okay, so like they were saying, the underwear in the dad's dresser drawer. I'm gonna go through like this whole piece of evidence and I want your guys' take on it because I wrote this down and I've been thinking every time I think of this book, I think of this fucking
I
underwear,
also
which is
have
really weird
my
to say.
reading journal with me. You're holding it angrily and I'm doing the same in spirit.
Yes. Okay.
Yeah, we got him, all of us. Let's go.
Trevor finds the underwear in his dad's dresser and distinctly remembers his girlfriend wearing them. It turns out she had it after they try to confront the dad. The girlfriend actually pulls them aside and she explains, "Hey, yes, she was wearing them, but those are mine." The girlfriend had gotten her period, like Sammy had explained, and I let her borrow my underwear.
No, nope, I'm not doing that. Absolutely not. I don't care who it
Who
is.
who takes borrowed period underwear back?
Right, right. Who says I got a pair you can wear? They're used but clean. Here you go.
Like I get just letting someone have a pair of like in the worst direst of situations. Like, sure, have this pair. They're clean. I wash them, but God, oh my God. Could you imagine just like the girl
Taking them back.
it back to her later, like, "Hey, I borrowed these. Thank you so much for letting me like use these." And she's like, "Oh, sure, no problem." Just fucking takes her underwear and like, what?
Who, like, what girl in this day and age does not pack enough underwear for just in case?
Well, they're high schoolers, so
I'm just okay.
I
But
guess like,
even high school me was still like, okay, if I'm going away, even when I would come stay at your guys' house, I was still packing extra underwear in case something happened. Everyone has washing machines. I can't
mhm,
imagine at some point they would have been like, no, you can't use our washing machine. Why did she even need to borrow the underwear in the first place?
yeah.
For the plot twist, Sam.
But
So
that's an
that like,
unnecessary plot point.
yeah, that like that whole thing. I just how do you write that and not immediately like
Vomit.
disgust yourself or like realize, hey, this isn't something that people in real life do. Like, what?
I can't. And for him to be so chill, I think about it too. Trevor, his girlfriend is now borrowing his dad's girlfriend's underwear.
But okay, but he didn't know about it. It was like a girl talk thing until
I
like it came out at the
After
party.
Trevor was dead.
Yeah.
Rip Trevor.
okay, that's fine then, I guess. But everyone else seemed way too calm about it.
Yeah, they were
Also,
like, "Oh, that makes sense." Not, are you fucking insane?
this
Like
is the
that's gross.
this is the only thing Trevor had to think that his dad was guilty. Why would he not immediately talk to his brother he was close with?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, I'm
You put it
sorry,
in the
but
binder instead or
if I
whatever.
thought my dad committed murder, I would immediately, like, first person I'd call would probably be Jackie going, "Hey, yo, what the fuck?"
Yeah, that's just so weird. I don't The underwear is a whole thing and I don't like any part of it.
Yeah, I wrote that down in my journal with like stars.
Talk
I
about
had to
the
stop
underwear.
reading and I was like, okay, here's my dissertation on this. Thanks by Jackie. Moving on. As the story is progressing, all these girls are in high school. There's drama happening or whatever. And all the girls on the soccer team go to the coach and they're like, we want her off the team. And the coach is like, walks up to her later and was like, hey, I have to kick you off the team. And she's like, what the fuck? And the coach is like, yeah, nobody wants you on the team. So, and she's like, okay, this sucks, but all right. And she leaves and she's off the team. And then later, after Robbie's like vindicated in Victoria's death, because it comes out that he didn't. Oh, did we go over that with the after Trevor dies? There's this fake suicide note that gets posted all over town
It was
that's
behind
supposedly Trevor's.
it was behind the scoreboard with the bikini top.
Oh, with the found bikini top. It's supposedly Trevor's, and it's confessing to not only Jess's death but also Victoria's.
Hmm.
So then Robbie's vindicated, or like whatever, he's proven innocent. So everybody forgives Robbie, and then everybody is also a lot cooler with Lauren at that point because she's not dating a murderer. And so after that happens, the girls are like, hey, you can join the team again. And she fucking joins the team again. I don't know. Maybe I just like, I know I get far too far from my feelings sometimes, but I could never, ever like just be like, okay, thanks, guys. Thanks for having me back. Like, go team.
Yeah, I don't. And then we didn't talk about this either, but the girl that's mean to her in the beginning, gives her a necklace and was like, "Oh, this is the team necklace. Everyone takes turns wearing it." But it was actually Victoria's. So then people were like, "Why would you wear that? That's so insensitive." And then she just like lets it go. Like there's
Well, she
like
confronted her in the locker room,
yeah,
and
but then they become friends later. I'm like, I wouldn't be friends with her later.
yeah, that's true.
Well, she like accuses Lauren of stealing it from her bag because she's like, I would never loan that to someone. So it's like a whole setup. And so
Yeah,
like not only like you're not only calling her like a bad person or whatever for rubbing in everybody's face or whatever, you're also like now she's a thief and like all this other terrible stuff. No way. No.
yeah, there's no way. I could almost forgive her joining the soccer team again because that could lead to scholarships in college and stuff, whatever. But to just be friends with that girl after she was so mean to you for no reason and publicly humiliated you and called you a liar and a thief and all this stuff. And she's just like, yeah, sure, you can help me with this murder investigation.
Yeah. They're like friendly enough to invite them in their close circle of who fucking did it.
Yeah.
Outrageous. No, I could never. Maybe there's people much more mature than me in high school, but even today I'd be like, mm-mm.
Oh yeah,
So
today me for sure not. But like high school me, there's no way.
mm-mm. So the last thing I want to talk about, her rescue. She gets drugged at her house, and Mark is able to take her and put her in like the trunk of the car, drive her all the way to the lake, row out to the middle of the lake in a rowboat, throw her over the side, row back to shore, and leave. And somehow the group of merry high schoolers are able to figure out that she's not where she's supposed to be, realize that she would have been at her house because they at this point they're like nobody travel alone, and she travels alone to her house because house should be safe. So they're all like, well, she's got to be there. So they put that together. They go to her house. She's not at the house. They find the skeleton costume, realize it's got to be Mark. Somehow drive the same way to the lake, makes it to the middle of the lake in time to rescue her. And that's it. Like, Mark throws her over the edge of the rowboat with like weights tied to her, like the anchor tied to her or something. So she's
Hmm.
sinking. And like right as her last breath is leaving her chest, like she feels this hand, they pull her out of the water. Like I know it's fiction, but it's like it's almost science fiction at that point because
Yeah.
it's like
How
the
fast was
time
Mark rowing to get to the shore?
unless Mark was driving like 10 miles under the speed limit and they were driving like 50 over, there's no way that they make it to the like lake at even close to the same amount of time to be able to help her at all. Like it just
Hmm.
doesn't make sense. They pull her out of the water in time for her not to drown.
Well, and like Izzy started to say, how fast was Mark rowing to get away from there that they didn't see him or see his car?
But they knew exactly which part of the lake he dropped her in.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it was very convenient writing.
Yes.
yeah. I wish you would have had a little bit more care with the
Hmm.
timeline there.
Even if they had seen, maybe had seen his car leaving or something, like if they had passed his car or something, like so there was less of a time gap. The way I read it, it felt like, he does all this stuff, drops her in. As he's dropping her in, that's when they realize that she's missing or something. So, like,
Because
it
they would have
feels,
had to, they would have realized she was missing at the time she got to her house. Because not only did they have to go from her house to the lake, they had to go from wherever they were in town
yeah,
to her house to find the skeleton costume, realize that it was her soon to be stepdad, and then make it to the lake in time to save her. So there's just no way that that's possible
no,
at all. Okay, so I'm glad we're on the same page because I was reading, I'm like, am I just being like super, am I like tearing
no.
this apart too much? And then I woke up in the hospital. I was pulled from the water at the last second. I'm like, what? By who? It even if it was like a random passerby, like
Yeah.
Yeah,
thought
that would have made more sense.
it
Is
would have
like,
made so
hey,
much more sense.
I saw that guy
Anything.
drop a tarpon. I see him pulling away. I'm gonna go see what that tarp was.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Instead, it's like Robbie like riding to
It
her
would have
rescue.
made
Like,
more sense if it was the coach that ran the store that saved her. I was
yeah.
thinking that the
Yes.
whole time. Like, he has an excuse to be up there. He knows who Mark is. It would have just been so much more perfect if he was the one that was like, oh shit, this weird guy just dropped a body-sized thing into this lake. I should go check that out.
Mm-hmm. Pretty much literally anyone else except Robbie.
Yeah. Are you done with your thoughts, Jackie?
Just that I rated this an 82 out of 100 for like the small plot things that we talked about, but mostly because it's set in high school.
Mm-hmm.
And that just like it kills me because there's high schoolers reading that and they're like, oh, it's so cool to like smoke cigarettes and like drink all
Have
this stuff. And so
casual
like,
sex and do all this weird stuff.
and
Yeah.
I know it's super lame of me to say that as a 28. If I was a high schooler listening to this, I'd be like, oh my God, shut up. No, we don't read that and think that. But I don't know. I just hate that it's set in high school, like college, anything. Like,
Mhm.
come on. I don't know. Final thoughts. 82.
82. Okay. I had quite a few problems with this book, but I did like certain aspects. So I was the most. Hi, Lily. She was on last week. She wanted to be on this week. She has very strong opinions about this book, Sam. Stop censoring our girl.
I'm sorry. She also likes to read. Sometimes I read snippets to her, and I know that they're going to be a good book by her tail wags, or she goes at me. So
Smart. I'm
she's
gonna start
she's
having
fired up
Jessie.
about this one.
I'm gonna read her a section of all our books and get her take too.
Yeah, my
Just,
dog would eat it, and then whatever she poops out, we can read and see if we can find any wisdom in it. Probably not. She's an idiot.
this one says give food. Weird. Okay, so I rated this one a 75 out of 100. I think I was the harshest one because I had some really big glaring issues, but I did like some of the stuff. I'll just jump into it. I typically do not consume young adult content because I'm not the demographic that it's aimed towards. I'm not in high school. I'm not just finding out love. I'm an old maid of 31 now. I've been married for 6 years with the same man for 8.
That would make you a matron.
Sorry, excuse me.
Excuse you.
I'm an old hag.
There, accept your old lady title. Stop trying to make yourself sound young.
Yeah.
But because of that, I typically don't consume young adult content. And because of that, I was able to notice some like very glaring things that don't fit with the thriller mystery genre because it was trying so hard to fit into that young adult category. I did not relate to the main character because she is a senior in high school and super into soccer. Not me. Farthest thing from me. Oh my God, I get it. You like sports. Happy for you. However, I'm not that girly. I did get pick me vibes from this main character and from a lot of the characters. Do you guys know it's the slang the kids are using, but do you know what pick me girls are?
Yes, I know what pick me is. I don't know if I necessarily agree with you. Not all of, not them. I don't know. I have to think about it.
Yeah, just that I'm not like other girls vibe I got from most of the, even Robbie. Like, goddamn.
I would say not like other girls, 100%, but maybe not a pick me
Mhm.
girl.
I
Yeah.
thought those are the
Yeah.
same thing. Maybe I'm too old.
Not like other girls is like I'm not like other girls, like I
They're like
listen to
I'm
country
cool
music, I
and
listen
tough
to
and
yeah.
yeah.
A
I thought
pick
that was
me
a
is
pick me.
there's a slight difference. A pick me kind of like
Someone get
shits
Urban
on
Dictionary. Like
shits
shits
on
on other girls.
other girls to make themselves look like
Oh, okay.
cooler. So there is a slight difference. Huge overlap, little bit different. So like not like other girls just shits on other girls, but a
But
pick me girl does that in order to get male attention.
yes, I understand that girls can be cliquey. Yes, I understand that high school is rough. However, I cannot get behind women tearing down other women like this. That's like, while yes, there are cliques and girls that do that, that has not been my experience. And if it has been anybody's experience, I feel sorry for you. But I feel like girls are very good at bonding with other girls, and we're not given credit for that. And in this kind of situation, yes, she's a newcomer, but like just the amount that these girls go through to like tear her down when she first joins the team, I'm not a fan of. I did like this book all right, and although the climax was not action packed and kind of boring, it did present a really messed up situation. The thought of a predator dating someone and convincing them to move across the country to have easier access to their daughter fucked me up. Just made my skin crawl.
We didn't even say the worst part. Well, okay, so I guess that's not the worst part, but the worst part after like the stepdad is like, hey, move over here, fresh start, all this other stuff. Then he's talking to the mom and he's like, I think it would be great if we just like grow our family. Let
Yeah.
me implant they were going to do IVF or something, right?
Mm-hmm.
So they're
Let's
like,
have a baby.
yeah, let's have a
And the
baby.
whole time he's like, I'm gonna murder your daughter.
But like, wasn't the mom supposed to get the embryos implanted?
That next week, yeah.
Yeah, right before this murder takes place. And the guy, even though he was like a sadistic serial killer that was going to kill Lauren anyway, was still going to go through with the implantation. That was always part of his plan, was for that to happen, like as a
Yeah.
final like fuck you to her mom or something.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, the thing I think is I honestly think that he was going to stay with her mom after he murdered her. Like I think that was his plan. But also I would like to talk about how fucked up the mom is in this situation because yeah, I realized that she like moved across the country for the betterment of her child, but her child is going through a hard time transferring schools her senior year, is like trying to do all this stuff, has like a senior night, all of these important things, and her mom's just missing it because of this guy. Like, I'm sorry, but the way that she presents her mom as being like there for her ride or die, her confidant, and then to just be like, yeah, but she met Mark and that's all out the window now, drove me absolutely fucking nuts. Which one is it? Either your mom's been flaky this whole time and it's a character flaw, or she's the person that moved across the country for you. Like, which one is it? Because those two things don't mesh.
I think they got into, remember that fight that her mom and her got into about it? And I think Lauren explicitly stated, like, you didn't move so I could start over. You moved so you could start over.
Yeah.
So you moved for you. You're starting this new family for you, like a do-over, like daughter, basically, because this fire happened and everybody thinks I did it. And now you just want to restart your life again without me in it.
Yeah. Speaking of, I do think that the way that this book presents Lauren's past is absolutely maddening. That's one of the problems I had. It did absolutely nothing by explaining what happened to Lauren after she gets almost murdered. I feel like it would have been much more helpful to understand Lauren's character by having that information almost up front. Because knowing this trauma, I can fully understand then why she is having this relationship with Robbie and trying to forget. I can fully understand why she's afraid of candles. I can fully understand why it's so important to her that this new soccer team accepts her. And not having that information made Lauren's vibe, like I said earlier, just seem like she's incredibly jaded for no reason. It's a young adult book, so she shouldn't have been having casual sex with anybody, in my opinion. But just having that explained would have been so much better.
Oh my God. Okay, I have to disagree with you. I'm sorry, but that like plot line, first, I love that the author had all of these different mystery plot lines happening at the same time because you're reading and you're like, "Oh my God, did she actually set that fire on purpose?" Because she would sarcastically like reply to people when they called her an arsonist or whatever. She'd be like, yeah, you better watch out. Like maybe I'll get a hankering to start another fire soon or something. And you're like, oh my God, clutching your pearls. Like, did she actually do it? And that plot line, along with, the three other murders, actually had me pretty interested and kept me going, kept me reading. So
True.
I have to disagree with you a little bit there because the same reason you hated that, it was the reason why I loved that. So.
But I will clap back a little bit and say that you could have still had that interesting storyline and had it been like an empowering thing rather than a mystery. Like by clapping back and people and saying, "Oh, I might start another fire soon," while knowing that she didn't do it, I think would have been like another character development moment for her instead of being this mystery. because I am one that does not like an unreliable narrator. I hate it. In fact, I just think that being so close, because it is a first person story, to not have that information, it should have been in a third person point of view then to make it make more sense.
Can I a little bit play devil's advocate?
Yeah.
Okay, so I think I liked the mystery part of it. I liked that you you didn't really know whether she did or not. However, I wish we would have been given just like a smidge more information, because like it felt like the author didn't actually know what her plot line was going to be, like her backstory. So then she wrote all this stuff like hinting at things that she wasn't sure about, because I don't know, especially like you brought it up, Izzy, that she's afraid of fire. I don't feel like I was given enough information to be like, oh, I see why she's afraid of fire. It talks about trauma, and then it talks about her being afraid of fire. But to me, I at no point was I was like, oh, her trauma must be fire related. And I think to have this, I don't know, big gaping piece of information not be there, I think made it seem like I couldn't relate to her at all, because in that aspect, because like yes, she was trying to forget it, yes, she was trying to move on, whatever, but to
You,
just like
you don't just
plug,
not think of it.
right, and to just plug in really weird things and like be like, oh, I hate fire, but then like even if she would have just been like, I hate fire because every time I see it, I see Clint's face or something, like if I had just had that like tiny little bit extra, I would have been like, why? What does that have to do with Clint's face? Like that would create more interest.
Mm-hmm.
But for her to just be like, oh, I hate fire, then I'm like, okay, cool. I hate spiders. What does that have to do with anything? Like, you know,
I'll meet you
I,
there. I'll say that.
yeah,
If you would have had a little bit more information, it would have been a lot better and added to it. I can meet you there. The next point that I have is I do feel like Mark being the killer came out of left field a little bit. It did not make
Yes.
sense in the lead
Yes.
up.
yeah,
We were
yeah,
not, it was trying to downplay it so hard that we didn't know what Mark's job was until we knew he
yep,
was the killer. We didn't know that he had access to everything all the time. And while we were like running around with chickens with our head cut off, I feel like there could have been more done to add in clues earlier, because it like you were saying, it did feel like the author didn't know who she wanted the killer to be until the end. And I really hate, this is the reason I have a problem with this being a mystery thriller and a young adult book, is because he sees Lauren's picture on her mom's dating profile and says, this is the second person I'm going to kill. I'm so obsessed with her. And then it's not sexually motivated. He talks about how he wanted it to be perfect and is going to take the nail polish off of her nails, and then he's just going to murder her. That's so outside of the realm of mystery thriller in this type of situation. That's so outside of reality. That's not what happens. Like if you know you're going to kill somebody, typically speaking, from all the true crime that I've enjoyed, I would think that it is something that is sexually motivating for this killer. And if you can talk about how Lauren is having a sexual relationship with Robbie to forget about Clint because she was raped by this guy Donovan, because of all these things, but you can't talk about Mark's motivations behind wanting to do this, I have no credibility. This climax was so anticlimactic, it's not even funny. I just had a really big problem with that. And it's not that I wanted to know like the motivations Mark had more in detail, because to want to have relations with a minor is wrong and would have put this squarely in a not young adult category. I don't really believe it should have been there in the first place. So I do just feel like it didn't make sense. And I feel like it would have made much more sense if it was somebody their age. I feel like it would have made sense if they explored why Mark had these feelings more, because the section we get that's from his point of view gives us no answers about any of this. So that's another reason why I knocked it down to 75 because overall the characters were pretty likable. The plot was good, but like there's just plot holes and the climax doesn't make sense. There were no clues leading up to it, so that I just couldn't give this a higher rating. I don't even think I could recommend this book to somebody that's looking for something that's mystery thriller because it's not a mystery thriller. I would also say that the only person I think I could recommend, I don't even think I could recommend this to somebody looking for a young adult, just because of the themes that were not young adult themes. For example, while I am glad that Lauren was able to get closure on the Clint Donovan fire situation, I do not like that there were zero consequences for Donovan besides losing his social standing. Like, while Lauren did a great thing and burned these pictures, none of the girls that he had pictures of knew she burned them. So he still had power over them when she left, as well as the fact that he had no consequences. Like, the only consequences were that, everybody realized he was a scumbag because he was a 17-year-old hanging out with a 14-year-old. That's only a 3-year difference. One. Two, senior freshman relationships happen all the time in high school, to the point where on our first day, Sam, if you remember, they played a video about how that was inappropriate. And if you're a freshman, don't date a senior. So that's how common it was. So instead of addressing what had happened, he just lost popularity. And I felt like that was really fucked up, honestly. Like, I don't think that just kind of gives the message that if you do shitty things like this, there's no real life consequences. And that's part of why I would not put this in the young adult category. And I don't think that I could recommend this book. Thank you. Do you guys agree? Like, what do you think? Am I being crazy? Am I being overly critical?
I do. I was going to say, I am with you for most of that. But on the serial killer motivation thing, I think you're letting your experience, our shared experience with true crime, kind of influence you a little bit. Because I know all fiction requires a little bit of a suspense of disbelief. But for a general reader, especially a young adult general reader, they're not going to necessarily have read that much true crime or know that generally the motivations of a serial killer aren't like.
True. I can meet you there. But then I would have liked his reasoning and
Yes.
why to be
Yes.
more
Oh,
clear.
I completely agree that like it seemed like, a lot of, and it's becoming more and more popular these days. A lot of times when I'm reading a mystery, unless it's Agatha Christie, the god queen of all mystery writers, I get the feeling that like they're halfway or 3/4 of the way through the book and they're like, oh my God, what if, like they get an epiphany and they're like, what if this person didn't? Wouldn't that be like crazy? And then they like finish the book when they're already like most of the way through the book. And that's kind of the feeling I got with this one, was she was like, oh my God, what if the twist is this? Nobody would see this coming. Because you're right, they never really talked about his job or what he did. Like I might have read it, but if it was brought up, it was like one short sentence. Like I don't remember hearing anything about him being like an IT or a security working anything. And if we had at least gotten some breadcrumbs along the way that maybe pointed to him, and they're like, no, it can't be like this guy. It's got to be like Coach or the father, that had at least one clue attributed to him. The fact that there was nothing just kind of lends itself to lazy mystery writing, I think.
Yeah, and how many awkward family dinners did they have where she could have complained that Mark was going on and on about his boring security job? There was so many opportunities for that, and it just never happened. And so that's part of my problem with the book. What do you think, Sam?
Because I was on mute, you missed that gigantic sigh. I okay. So we talked about a lot of the things why I scored it the way I did, but I had such an issue with Mark being the killer because, like you guys said, there literally no reason. I debated scoring this lower mostly because of that, but I felt, like I said earlier, I felt like it was a lot of convenient writing, and felt like it kind of felt to me like a thriller book template that she just plugged things into, but then didn't quite change all the aspects. because like we get the mystery texts, the traumatizing past, the dangerous love interest, the almost dying herself and then conveniently saved by the love interest. There were so many plot lines. It could have used some editing, I think. And then if those other plot points had been edited out, maybe it would have lent to more time for her to be like, we had another boring dinner and Mark went on and on about his stupid security company, or he could have had even like a briefcase with his company name on it, and like we were given so many clues about the coach, Robbie's dad, Trevor, even. And we had all of these suspects with like legitimate clues pointing to them. And then Mark just like shows up out of nowhere.
Yeah,
And
that there was not a single clue never mentioned before. Like even if there was like half a clue or
yeah,
something about him, like
like not like Ainsley could have been like, yeah, my dad's kind of weird around my friends. We could even had that. That could have been just, oh, like maybe he's a creepy older guy who is a little too into teenagers. Like that could have been a clue.
That could have been
The
why his ex-wife left him.
yeah, and Izzy's comment about it not being sexually motivated but creepy. I understand where Izzy's coming with that. Like more often than not, if an older guy is going to do something to a teenager, it's sexually motivated, especially if they've never met before. So I think, but I see where Jackie's coming with that too. Like, it doesn't always have to be. I feel like it was so random for him to be like, yeah, you and your teenage daughter could come move here and live with me. And then for him to kill or attempt to kill her just for no reason, like every part of it felt so random and it kind of took me out of the story. Him just to be like, oh yeah, like kind of try to come off as this perfect guy because he's like, oh yeah, the mom's so in love with him and like he doesn't seem to know about like Ainsley's drug problem. So like on the surface, Ainsley seems like this perfect daughter, that kind of thing. So like they play Mark to be this perfect dad. He's, got his fancy job and now he's gonna have a new family and all this, and then to just be a murderer in the background. I don't like it. My final thought on this, I don't think I'd recommend it to anybody. Not because the writing was necessarily bad. I'm like, there wasn't necessarily anything wrong. It just wasn't my cup of tea. Like Izzy said, I don't usually read young adult novels like we discussed. I don't think it should be a young adult book, nor should it be a thriller. It felt a little to me like a fan fiction murder book.
yeah, and that's why I liked this book. I can see why it's popular for somebody who's just looking for like a quick, I don't know, train read or a plane ride read and just want a distraction and they don't want to look too much into it. Like, yeah, read it. It's a really good mystery. And if you don't like think about it too much, you get to the twist and you're like, oh my God, I never saw that coming. How could it be Mark? Not bad. Once you start thinking about it a little bit, then things don't really start to add up. So I get why it's popular. If you're not looking for like a slow read or something that you're going to spend more than like a day on, I wouldn't recommend it to someone, but just like a fast nonsense read, sure. Also,
Sounds
the
Yeah,
title. I'm sorry, the title. We never talked about the title. Nobody got away with murder.
yeah,
The killer was caught.
yeah. That's a
I
good
mean,
point too.
I
Yeah.
guess they got away like for a year. Then he's got sent to prison and
Yeah, but then it also doesn't make sense that it's murder because he murders several people. So,
murders. Yeah.
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 So
Yeah, that's a good point too. Yeah.
I was expecting, I guess maybe why I was so underwhelmed by the side plot that Lauren had in her past is because I thought she was the one that got away with murder. Because two girls from the soccer team go missing. That's not one murder. And also, Mark got caught at the end. So, after Mark got caught, we discover all this stuff about Lauren's past. So, I thought she was going to have something to do with like Clint's disappearance or Clint's situation, but he's fine. So Yeah, I agree on the title. Like, it's very misleading. It doesn't really match up with the plot. And it made me sad because I was like, oh.
Okay. Anyone want to give last thoughts?
I will say I agree with Jackie. Like, I still gave it a 75 out of 100. I think that I'll say this. I think that if it's above a 50, it's decent enough to say read it if you have time. It's just a little book. It's just not one of my favorites.
Yeah, I would be hesitant to recommend it to anyone who is big into thriller mysteries, but potentially if you're just starting out, you want like a little book to stick your little toes into to get started. I could see that.
Or you're not in the mood for something heavy.
Yes. I'm not gonna totally write it off because like I said, I gave it an 80, so it was a decently good book. I'm not writing it off. I had a lot of issues with it. So for as many issues as we had with it, for it to still score as high as it did, there had to be something right with it.
Yeah. Plot, great. Characters, pretty great. Climax, awful.
Yeah.
I guess you can find us on Facebook and Instagram now.
Instagram now.
Instagram now. What are our handles?
Same name as our podcast, Penny Dreadful's podcast.
You can find us on Goodreads. We have a page. You can also, if you're watching this on YouTube, please feel free to like and subscribe, leave a comment with what you thought. You can also send us an email at pennydreadfulspodcast@gmail.com. We would love to get book recommendations or hear what you thought of this book. Did you agree? Did you disagree? Everybody can read books in their own way, and everyone can take something else away from them that maybe we didn't get because all three of us are in kind of the same situation, same economic background, same demographics. So we don't really get outside perspectives. So we would love to hear any and all of those.
The book we're reading next week is kind of a short one, so you have time to read that before our next episode airs. It's Murder on the Orient Express by the Queen of Murder herself,
All hail Agatha Christie.
Agatha Christie. And then the one after that, so 2 weeks from this episode airing, is going to be Shark Heart by Emily Habak. So read along with us.
Just in time. It's the week after Shark Week right now. You know, we're all primed for a shark story.
That's true.
Okay. Well, Jackie, now in that recording.
Okay, now, but not because you told me to.